Philadelphia. The name itself echoes with the weight of history. It is a city etched into the very soul of America, a place where the dreams of a new nation were first whispered, then debated, then finally declared for all the world to hear. We see the familiar images in our mind's eye. Independence Hall standing proud against a clear blue sky, the stoic faces of the founding fathers gathered in solemn assembly. We think we know this story. We believe we understand the foundation upon which this country was built. But what if the Philadelphia we know is merely the surface, while a deeper, more mysterious history lies just beneath the surface, hidden in the shadows of its celebrated past? This was the Crucible. In the humid summer of 1774, delegates from 12 colonies gathered at Carpenter's Hall. The First Continental Congress was not a call for revolution, not yet. It was a plea, a firm but respectful petition to a distant king. They were Englishmen demanding their rights. But the air was thick with something more, a nascent idea of a shared identity, a continental spirit that transcended colonial boundaries. The seeds were sown in those tense, closed-door meetings. When they reconvened for the Second Continental Congress in 1775 at the Pennsylvania State House, the world had changed. Blood had been spilled at Lexington and Concord. The whispers had grown into a chorus demanding something more than rights. They were demanding a future. The summer of 1776 was a pressure cooker. Inside that sweltering room, now known as Independence Hall, men of property and standing debated treason. To sign the document that Thomas Jefferson had so eloquently drafted was to sign one's own death warrant. They argued, they sweated, they feared. John Hancock's bold signature was an act of audacious defiance. This was not just a political act, it was a deeply personal one, a gamble of life, liberty, and sacred honor. The Liberty Bell. It is perhaps the most iconic symbol of American freedom. Its famous crack a testament to its long and storied journey. We see it suspended, silent and majestic, a relic that has witnessed the birth of a nation. Its inscription, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land," has inspired generations. But honestly, the story of its fracture is far more complicated and mysterious than the simple tale we often hear. The great chasm that renders it silent is not the only wound it bears. The bell is a map of its own difficult history, marked by stresses and strains that are hidden from the casual observer, a history of repeated attempts to heal what was perhaps always meant to be broken. The common legend tells us the bell cracked when it was rung to celebrate the signing of the Declaration of Independence. This is a romantic fiction, a story woven long after the fact. The bell, originally known as the State House Bell, likely rang on July 8, 1776, for the first public reading of the Declaration, but its famous crack appeared much later, around 1846. Look closer at the bell's surface, beyond the jagged primary crack that everyone photographs. If you gaze upon the smooth bronze, you will find a hidden web of hairline fractures, a delicate tracery of stress marks that spread across its crown. These are the secret cracks, the unseen wounds that tell a more nuanced story. In an attempt to repair the initial, smaller crack that developed in the 1840s, metalworkers used a technique called stop drilling, drilling small holes at the end of the fracture to prevent it from spreading. Benjamin Franklin was Philadelphia's favorite son. He was a statesman, a diplomat, an inventor, and a philosopher, the embodiment of the Enlightenment spirit. His mind crackled with an insatiable curiosity that led him to harness lightning, chart the Gulf Stream, and invent bifocals. We picture him as a benevolent, grandfatherly figure flying a kite in a storm. But beneath his public persona of practical wisdom and civic virtue lay a man with a deeper, more mysterious interest in the fundamental secrets of the natural world, particularly the intricate mechanics of the human body. This fascination led to discoveries in his own home that remain shrouded in a certain degree of mystery to this day. In 1998, during a restoration of his former home at 36 Craven Street in London, where he lived for nearly 2 decades, workers made a startling discovery. Buried in a windowless basement room were the skeletal remains of more than a dozen bodies, men, women, and children. The bones, dating back to Franklin's time in the house, showed clear signs of medical dissection. Skulls had been drilled, femurs sawed through. The immediate thought was grim. Had the wise old Franklin been leading a secret, sinister life? Was this the work of a serial killer? A dark secret hidden by one of America's most revered founders? The discovery sent a shockwave through the historical community. The truth, while less sensational, is no less fascinating and reveals a hidden side of the 18th century scientific world. The prevailing theory is that the bones were not the victims of foul play, but rather the subjects of a secret anatomy school run by Franklin's young friend and protege, William Hewson. In that era, the study of anatomy was controversial and legally restricted. The only legal source for cadavers was the gallows, and there were never enough to satisfy the demands of medical students and researchers. Consequently, a clandestine trade in human bodies flourished, with resurrection men robbing fresh graves to supply anatomists with subjects for their vital yet forbidden work. Franklin, ever the champion of scientific progress, almost certainly knew about and approved of Hewson's secret school operating from his home. It was a risky endeavor, one that flew in the face of public sentiment and the law. Philadelphia's role as the birthplace of the nation is cemented in its political history, but its innovative spirit extended far beyond the halls of government. It was a city of pioneers, a place where the foundational pillars of American civil society were laid, one first at a time. Before there was a United States, there was a Philadelphia that was already modeling what a modern, enlightened city could be. This was a place where new ideas about community, knowledge, and commerce took root and flourished, creating a blueprint that countless other American cities would follow for centuries to come. The city's very infrastructure became a testament to its forward-thinking ethos. Imagine a city without a public library, a place where books were only for the wealthy elite. In 1731, Benjamin Franklin and his associates changed that forever by establishing the Library Company of Philadelphia, the first successful lending library in America. It was a revolutionary concept, the pooling of resources for the common intellectual good. This was followed by the nation's first hospital, Pennsylvania Hospital, co-founded by Franklin in 1751 to care for the sick and poor. The city's innovation didn't stop with knowledge and health. In 1790, it became home to the Philadelphia Stock Exchange, the first stock exchange in the United States, creating a centralized marketplace for the burgeoning nation's finances. A few years earlier, in 1784, the Pennsylvania Packet and Daily Advertiser became the country's first successful daily newspaper, quenching a growing thirst for information and connecting the citizens of the new republic in a way that had never been possible before. Yet, perhaps the most delightful of its firsts was the Philadelphia Zoo, the first true zoo in America, which opened its gates in 1874. It represented a new way of thinking about the natural world, a place for public education and conservation. Walking through Philadelphia today is like walking through a living museum of American innovation. These firsts are not just historical footnotes. They are the ghosts of a revolutionary spirit, a reminder that the city was not just the cradle of political liberty, but also the laboratory for American society itself, a place where the very idea of a modern community was born. Every city has its secrets, but Philadelphia's are layered deep within its soil. Beneath the bustling streets and historic landmarks lies a hidden world, a network of forgotten tunnels and subterranean spaces that whisper tales of a bygone era. These are the city's secret arteries, passages that once served vital purposes, but have since been sealed off, abandoned, and largely forgotten by the millions who walk above them every day. To explore these spaces is to step into a different dimension of the city's history, one that is dark, silent, and saturated with the ghosts of the past. The most famous of these hidden realms lies directly beneath one of the city's most vibrant public spaces. The Reading Terminal Market is a sensory explosion, a beloved hub of commerce and cuisine. But below the clamor of the market floor exists a vast, cavernous space, the former passenger concourse and train shed of the Reading Railroad. This immense cathedral-like structure, now largely empty and silent, was once a gateway to the city for millions of travelers. Further below lies an even more mysterious network of tunnels, including a half-mile passage that connected the Reading terminal to other parts of the city. These were not just utility corridors. They were part of a grand, ambitious vision for a modern transportation system that was never fully realized. These subterranean passages are rumored to be connected to even older tunnels, some dating back to the 18th century. Legends persist of secret escape routes used by the founding fathers, or passages that were part of the Underground Railroad, providing safe passage for escaped slaves on their journey to freedom. While many of these tales are difficult to verify, they speak to a powerful truth. The city has always had a life beneath its surface. These tunnels were conduits for trains, goods, and perhaps even people seeking liberty, their stories now absorbed by the cold, damp walls. Exploring these forgotten spaces is a haunting experience. The air is still and heavy, and the silence is broken only by the drip of water and the distant rumble of the subway. You can almost hear the echoes of the past, the whistles of steam engines, the calls of conductors, the hurried footsteps of generations of Philadelphians. These tunnels are a physical manifestation of the city's memory, a reminder that for every story told in the open air, there is another that lies buried, waiting in the darkness beneath the cobblestones for someone to come and listen to its silent testimony. For one brief, shining decade, from 1790 to 1800, Philadelphia was more than just a city. It was the heart of the new American Republic. As the temporary capital of the United States, it was the stage upon which the nation's identity was forged. Here, President George Washington governed, Congress debated the very structure of the government, and the Supreme Court first convened. The city was a bustling cosmopolitan center of power, a place where foreign dignitaries mingled with senators and the foundational laws of the land were written. It was in Philadelphia that the abstract ideals of the Revolution were hammered into the practical reality of a functioning government. George Washington's presence dominated the city. He lived and worked in the President's House on Market Street, a site now adjacent to the Liberty Bell Center. This was America's first executive mansion, and it was far from a simple residence. It was a bustling center of political and social life, but it also held a dark secret. Washington, a Virginia slaveholder, used a legal loophole in Pennsylvania's Gradual Abolition Act to keep his enslaved workers in bondage. He would rotate them out of the state every 6 months to prevent them from qualifying for their freedom under Pennsylvania law, a calculated and chilling act that reveals the deep moral contradictions at the heart of the new nation. While the nation's leaders built a republic dedicated to liberty, the British occupation of 1777 to 1778 had left its own scars and stories. When General Howe's army marched into the city, patriots fled, and loyalists who remained welcomed the redcoats with open arms. Philadelphia transformed into a garrison town, its grand homes and public buildings commandeered by British officers. The winter was one of lavish parties and extravagant balls, culminating in the Mischianza, an incredibly opulent medieval-themed festival held in honor of the departing General Howe. It was a spectacle of indulgence and loyalty to the crown, a world away from the suffering of Washington's army at Valley Forge. These two chapters of Philadelphia's history, its time as the nation's capital and its time under British rule, are two sides of the same coin. They show a city of profound dualities, a cradle of liberty that housed the enslaved, a center of patriotic fervor that also hosted glittering loyalist balls. The city was a microcosm of the conflicts that defined the era, a place where the ideals of freedom were championed even as the realities of power, compromise, and human bondage played out in the president's own home. Under every cobblestone lies a story, and behind every landmark, a secret history waiting to be told.